Hey guys, welcome back to Pastoral Apologetics. And I want to answer this question that as a pastor for 25 plus years, I've heard so many times. And that is, Pastor, I've tried to read the Bible, but why is the Bible so difficult to understand? And I get it, because when I first became a Christian, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And so it was my brother who had become a believer. And then he led my wife and I to Jesus. My wife and I were just dating at the time. And he gave me his Bible. And it was a King James Bible. So that's what I had started reading, was the King James Version, which I didn't even know that there were other translations out there. So I was just struggling reading, Old English. And but I didn't know anything about the Bible outside of some of the Bible movies that I had seen. And one of the reasons why people say the Bible is difficult is because many times people are just opening the Bible anywhere and just starting to read. Like, by the way, if you do that with any book, whatever book, and you just open the Bible, open whatever book and start reading in whatever chapter, of course it's going to be difficult because you have no idea. You're just picking some random place. The other thing that's important to note is that the Bible was not originally written in English. The Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures were written in Hebrew. There's a few chapters written in Aramaic, but most of it was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was written in what's called Koine Greek or Common Greek. Today it's called Biblical Greek. And the Bible is also written at a different time. And so as we start reading the Bible, we have to realize that we're talking about, especially like the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, these were written 3,500 years ago. So the Old Testament ends probably about 450 BC. So the other thing that's important for us to note is that the culture of the Bible was totally different than our culture. And this is not only a different culture, but it's a culture that was half a world away. And this is why we read some Old Testament passage and they don't make sense to us, because we're trying to interpret the Bible through our modern lens, and that doesn't really work well. And so one of the things that we'll do, and as in these videos that we do, is we'll try to not just draw out like the meaning of the text, but why some texts are more difficult to understand than others. And the other thing that we have to understand too is, if we don't understand the context of a particular book of the Bible, the style of a particular book of the Bible, we're going to miss the entire point of that book and the entire point of the Bible, because the Bible was written over the course of 1,500 years by about 40 different authors. And that's why I've heard people say this throughout the years, that the Bible is less of a book and more of a library, because it is a collection of 66 books written by about 40 different authors over the course of 1,500 years. Which means that there are different writing styles that are important to understand. There is what's called narrative writing. A lot of the Old Testament is written in narrative writing. The Gospels are written in narrative. The book of Acts is written in narrative. There's prophetic writing. Now, prophetic writing is not as clear as narrative writing, and it's not meant to be. So if you see this in a book like Isaiah, where the first part of the book is narrative, and then you get to chapter 40 through the end, and it's all prophetic. There's poetic writing, and this is what we see in books like Psalms and Proverbs. It's more emotional writing, conveying the heart of the writer in what their situation is. And then, of course, there's instructive writing, which is really what much of the New Testament is, which once again is a little easier for us, those of us in the West, to really understand, because it's meant to be helpful, instructive, teach followers of Jesus how to live and follow Jesus in this world. Now, where we get into trouble is when we take historical passages and try to make them prophetic. We take poetry and try to make it instructive, and it can be a little bit difficult, so we got to be careful. So what's the message of the Bible? It's really one word: redemption. God seeking to redeem a people. To redeem something is to buy something back for the purpose of setting it free. And redemption is the message of the Bible. It's how God paid the price for our sin for the purpose of setting us free. And so for us to really understand the message of the Bible, you've got to understand the story of the Bible and how the narrative of the Bible moves from Genesis to Revelation. And it's really, in some ways, kind of like a 7-act play. That is, Act 1, God establishes his kingdom at creation. Act 2, Sadly, that doesn't last too long, only 2 chapters. Act 2, there's rebellion in this kingdom. That's the fall of mankind. Act 3, the king chooses Israel, that is his own people. That is, the act of redemption is initiated, where God chooses a people for himself, and then God chooses a land for his people. Act 4 is the coming of the king. This is redemption is now accomplished, and then, which once again we read about in the Gospels. There is Act 5 is the spreading of the news of the king, and this is the mission of the church as we see in the book of Acts and through the epistles. And then finally, Act 6 is the return of the king, and that is that redemption is finally accomplished. That is what we read in the book of Revelation. So what happens when I start reading the Bible? I understand, okay, I got that, Pastor, I got the framework, but what happens when I start reading the Bible and I run into something I don't understand? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to write it down, and I want you to keep reading. And this is what I did. If you watch our very first video, I've talked about this with my neighbor Bill, and he would invite me over to his house whenever I had questions, and I would just keep a pen and paper. You can do this on your phone if you want, but just start. If you read something, you're like, wow, I don't understand that, write it down. Write down the question. And by the way, it's really cool if you'll do this over the course of time. You'll find that not only do you have the questions, but you're going to find that over the course of time, God starts answering those questions. He'll start answering questions with people that you talk to that maybe are a little more seasoned in their faith. He'll answer those questions as you continue to do your own reading and research. What else will happen is you'll have a question somewhere in the Bible, and then later as you're reading the Bible, that the Bible will answer the question that you had. And so, and then the other thing you can do is, once again, you want to go, you say, man, but that question hasn't been answered. You can go and look, read commentaries, which are interpretations, explanations of what the verses mean. You can go online and look, and there are very good websites out there. There are also not very good websites, because lots of people have opinions on the Bible who actually know nothing about the Bible. And so you want to be careful, but there are very good websites and reputable websites that do really good research and answer questions. But here's the key. Don't stop reading when you hit something you don't understand. Instead, here's what happens. Sometimes the thing you don't understand is revealed later. But I can't, and let me just say this finally, I can't underscore this enough. Pray before you read the Bible. That's got to be the very first thing that we do. Pray before you read the Bible, because here's the cool thing, is that whenever you open the Bible to read it, the author is there with you. And I love that. And so pray before you read the Bible. Ask God to give you understanding and wisdom. Pray the prayer of the psalmist in Psalm 119, who said this, Psalm 119, verse 18, open my eyes that I may see wondrous things from your law. And if you pray that prayer, I can tell you this, as someone who's walked with God for more than 30 years, God is faithful to answer it. Is every single question you've ever had about the Bible going to be answered? Probably not. But that's why the Bible can be shallow enough to where a child can play in it, a child can understand so many themes and truths about the Bible, but it's also so deep that even the most learned theologian will never reach the bottom. And that is why studying the Bible and knowing God is such a worthy pursuit in your life, because you'll never get to the bottom until the day we see Him face to face. So listen, I hope this has helped in why is the Bible hard to understand? At least we understand now why, and we can remedy some of the reasons as we read the text and as God speaks to us. So we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, keep reading.